I'm Jessica Cumberbatch Anderson. I am a lifestyle journalist and writer, editor. I've written for Essence, but not only Essence. I've written for a number of publications. But I really want to just get the conversation going. We have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to bring up two stars, Miss Yvonne Orji, who's over here on her way up, and Insecure's executive producer, Prentice Penny. I feel like we got to get cozy. We have a lot to get into.
No, you got it. So, Prentice, we have questions for you.
Right,
I'll be with
you. Over here with you.
Okay. What do you guys think? I feel like this is like, this needs to be like open forum. This is so good. Great start, you guys. I had a bunch of questions. I wanted to kind of get caught up on what you've been up to since we last saw you here last year. But I feel like we need to just dive right into this, this episode 1. Tell us a little bit about, I feel like there's this theme of evolution, evolving that's happening. Am I wrong? Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole season was about, typically what East and I do is before the season, we'll like get together and just sort of talk over a lot of champagne and just sort of like try to dive into like, what do we want to explore this year? And I think we felt the last 2 years, you've watched these characters sort of like kind of be a little bit naive and like, you know, make mistakes, and they're no longer naive, right? Issa's going from 29 to 30 in the course of the season this year, and we feel like she couldn't kind of make the same mistakes, same with Yvonne and same with all of our characters, that they couldn't sort of just keep doing the same thing. You know, part of it was about, you know, adulting, growing up, and part of adulting is, you know, taking 2 steps forward or 1 step back, but like nonetheless kind of still moving forward, knowing what I have to do and doing what's hard is hard. And that was sort of how the episode ended, which is like, I don't want to have to get up to go lift. I'm hearing Daniel go out there with some other girl, but at the end of the day, I put my feelings on the line. I was honest, I was upfront, and I still got to go do this shitty lift job, and that's part of growing up. And even with Yvonne, and same with Molly's character of like, hey, I said this thing with Dro, and in season 2, I would backtrack on that, but I said I was going to create boundaries, and I have to create boundaries, and live with those choices.
Are you creating boundaries? Is that?
I think she as much. I think she created boundaries as best as she could. You know, just give her back her keys and y'all will be straight.
When you were here last year, Yvonne, I mean, Molly hadn't really got into this situation with Dro fully, and you talked a little bit about, you know, her character evolving a little bit and how people would either sort of love it or hate it. What kind of reactions have you gotten?
Oh, well, Black Twitter let me know they hated it, so appreciate you guys. I felt like maybe that first episode would be retribution, I think, for everyone after the way we ended season 2 last year, so you're welcome. No, like when Molly opened the door for Dro, it was just like, this hoe don't care about her life. That was like the resounding message, and I think hopefully this kind of redeems your love for her. Cause I mean, she stood her ground. I was proud of her.
She's trying.
She's trying. You know, I appreciate y'all for writing that. My tweets would be so angry after season 1.
Speaking of writing, Prentice, tell me a little bit about the role that the male writers play in sort of telling this story about women and the many layers that exist as far as relationships go among them.
I'm perplexed. I mean, legit, like we have, I mean, our writer's room is a lot of women. I mean, to be honest, I mean, there's 4 male writers, and the rest, the other 6 to 7 to 8 people that contribute are all women, and specifically 5 to 6 black women. So I would never say that like I profess to be able to like do any of that. You know what I mean? I feel like my best job in the writer's room as a showrunner is really to like kind of take this clay and kind of just say like, okay, we have all these amazing ideas. How do we sort of whittle them down to like the best version of that? I mean, obviously, and Issa's in the room too. So there's like, we're sort of doing it together. There's no like, I'm the arbiter of any of that, you know what I mean? So I feel like what we try to do is hear everybody, right? And take the clay and continue to mold it. Like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. That, not so much of that, but I like that little bit of part of that. And you kind of keep molding it until that happens, you know what I mean? So that's really the most, I think the coolest part is like being a part of that and being able to take, my very first job was on Girlfriends. So it's been, I've learned that Amara Brock-Akil, and obviously she was here with Love Is earlier, and so it's been such a blessing to be able to like be the sort of like conduit from Mara to the next generation to Issa, and like take what I learned from this amazing black woman and like pass it on to this other amazing black woman too, you know what I mean? So.
But Prentice, I will say that like what you all are able to do, especially with the nuances with the men, like even watching it, because I'm not in the writer's room, but when Daniel said that very black man, it's just the little things, because everybody's had that conversation with a black dude, and it's like you want to have the conversation go, and they're like, cool. But that cool is so loaded. It's so
But that's
loaded.
real. But that's what our writers' room is like. A lot of it is like the very arguments that our characters will have on screen. Like that'll happen in our real writers' room. Like from season 1 when Molly was talking about, is Jared gay? And we talked about like if a woman does it, he's not gay, she's not gay, but if a guy does it, he is gay. Like that was a real conversation in the room. And so a lot of these conversations and, you know, like what we say, like, oh, a dude will say, like, we actually will have those conversations play out in the writer's room of like, he would say this, or you would say this, or he would actually do this, you know what I mean? And so I think we just obviously take the things that we talk about that we say, oh, he would never, like, they've pitched shit that I was like, a nigga would never do that. Like, I was like, he would not do that shit, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, a dude, just, I know that's what you want him to do, but he's not gonna say that, you know what I mean? And so I think like we try to just be authentic to that voice, you know?
Well, wait, I'm curious, has it ever happened when like, you were like, a nigga would never do that, and then the girls are like, but they've done it, these niggas have done it, and you're like, because I mean, you're a different type of dude too.
I'll give you a good example of like what happened. So, in the first season, I wrote the episode where Lawrence finds out about Issa, right? And when he's like, yo, was it him? Did you fuck him? You fucked him? And I wrote in there at one point a lot of exclamation marks on, you fucked that motherfucker? And he tosses the table. And I was like, that shit happened to me in real life. I really tossed the table when I was in college, when I found out my college girlfriend had done that shit, and so they was like, nah, that's just too extra, and I was like, yo, that's just real. A nigga will toss a table, because he ain't gonna hit you, but he gonna toss that table is trash. So that's an example where I was like, trust me, the shit's real.
R.I.P. table.
Speaking of Lawrence, notably absent from this episode, and I hear, oh, wow.
They didn't sign the petition.
I hear, you know, as part of this evolution that Issa is going through, everyone, it seems, he's not going to be in a few of the episodes, a bigger part. Tell us a little bit about, is that?
I mean, he's not in the show. On the show, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, but who is in the show, though, is a really great ensemble. So just a real, why do we focus on, you know, the negative all the time? That's why we can't rise as a
Not
people.
there. What is there? What is
Let's
there?
focus on what you got. That's why your relationships are working. No, just
Because you can't see your blessings.
you can't see. Don't block your blessings.
I mean, the truth, I mean, honestly, I can tell people like the honest truth about that was initially not the plan, right? The initial plan for the whole season was always to have Lawrence around, to have Jay around. He's such an amazing actor, and awesome. And then we got into the writer's room. You know, the show's a half an hour. It's not even half, it's like 20 minutes. So we know you got to tell Issa stories, you got to tell Molly stories, and we knew we wanted to tell Daniel stories because we were like, look, how do we keep the show fresh and not feel like if you've seen season 1 of Insecure, you've seen season 3, right? That's always our thing. How do we push ourselves out of our comfort zone? And so for us, it was, well, let's tell Daniel stories. Why is she with him? Why does she like him? What's he insecure about, right? Because everybody in the show, you see their insecurities. So for us, it was about, well, what's his insecurities? What's the dirt on Daniel? Because usually he always comes in as like a knight in shining armor, but like, what's the dirt under him, you know? And so as we started to do that, and we were like, okay, what are Lauren's stories? And as we started talking about those stories organically, it was like the fact that he wasn't with her made it harder to be engaged in like seeing what Lawrence is doing at work without some sort of emotional attachment to Issa. Kind of felt like a different show. And it kind of became the elephant in the room. And kind of once we were all looking at each other in the writer's room one day, like, maybe we should take him out the show. And that's a hard thing to say, right? Because he's such a character people love. Yeah. But for us, it was, well, look, are we forcing him to be in the show? Does that make our show better, worse? And once we kind of freed ourselves of like, organically, would she still talk to him without getting this sort of back and forth, will they, blah, 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 blah. It just was like, what if we do that? What if we take him out the show? What does that allow us to do? And it actually, as much as it hurt us, it freed us in a lot of ways to like just tell the best version of our show and not be tethered to things that we felt, because our show isn't like a network show, right? Like a show on ABC, you got to tell the same characters, the same stories every week. Where our show is a cable show. We can like kind of push the envelope in different ways. And once we did that, it felt very freeing to be able to say like, well, what else can we do? What other stories can we tell? What other types of things can we do? So for us, it was like, this is a way to sort of shake up the show. It wasn't a plan. It just sort of happened organically because it was like, unless he's tied to Issa, who wants to see like Lawrence do computer stuff? It was just.
And I've heard Issa say or ask or pose the question like, how many of y'all still talk to your exes? You know, and when you look at it from that point of view, it's like if this is a slice of life for this 29-year-old woman, like, sure, we cool, we kumbaya, we look at the baby that could have been, but wasn't. And so now, like, we've hugged, we've made up, fly. And it's just like, are you still talking to your exes? Are you like, you've unfollowed them on the DMs? I know you. All of you have unfollowed them. You've blocked some of them. So, you know, in this case, that's kind of like. But Lawrence. Jay is amazing. Jay is still like all of our friends. There was no tea or anything like that. I feel like people were like, what happened? No. Nothing. Yeah.
So you're still friends.
She doesn't believe. She doesn't believe. Oh, so y'all so cool. If that's what you said.
Jay's cool. Jay's in Greece, draping grape juice.
Jay's been in Italy.
It's fine.
He's not tripping off us.
Some friends and I, we were talking about how it feels to be this sort of, and I don't know, you can attest to this. And actually, you spoke about this in an interview that you did recently about how there's sort of this renaissance that's happening among Black actors and artists. And I think the conversation that we're having about, well, we see you guys on Instagram, like you're hanging out in real life and like sort of really encouraging each other and building up each other's careers. Talk a little bit about that and the role that plays, or whether it's more pressure and responsibility, and how that sort of plays out in these characters.
Man, I would imagine it'd be hard for this chemistry to exist if like me and Issa didn't get along, or if like if we didn't get along as a cast. Like, I mean, I think I'm a decent actress, but that's a lot of playing. I feel like if it was like, I hate that hoe, it's like, oh, let's do the scene together. It'd be like, oh, this is not gonna work. So it helps that like legitimately everybody on the show is really cool. Like, and it starts from the top down, from the writers, and because they'll be on set while we're filming and throwing out lines, and it's just like that camaraderie to the directors, to everyone. But I mean, y'all can look around this room, like there is the Black Renaissance. Like this is 16 years of the Martha's Vineyard, Black Film Festival. Like this is dope. So, I mean, I think that's existing more and more as we get to control our own narratives. You see it with the Atlanta crew, you see it with the Blackish crew, you see it with all these shows like The Love Is and The Dear White People and She's Gotta Have It. It's like there's such a, just a, kicking the doorway in the 4-4. Like such a movement. Like, I don't know, I got gangster for 5 seconds. But there's just such a like, we here and we black and like ask about us, like that's happening right now. That I think happened before, but like I say all the time, the difference is social media won't let you forget. You know, when Martin went away, when Living Single went away, when Girlfriends went, it was kind of like, oh man, I missed that show. And like, I don't think a lot of people understood like how shows get canceled, what that meant. Now it's like, no, where's our show? No, what do you mean? Oh, no, you can't just have one black person without a black writer or without a black makeup artist. Like, we're calling you on the carpet now and holding you responsible. And, you know, in post-Wakanda America, are you done? No. Like in post-Wakanda America, it's like, oh, and we're in case you forgot, we're still profitable. So at the end of the day, money talks.
Speaking of money, one of the storylines last season was about you and your wage gap, and that really hit home for a lot of people. We see you kind of talk a little bit about it in this episode and seemingly empowered to negotiate and get what you want up front. Talk a little bit about, I don't know if we're going to see more of that and how that sort of plays to the story of growing up.
Yeah, I mean, all she wanted was a PPO, and no, I think
it's a $50 copay. Just
listen, bring back Obamacare for real. Also, is Obama here? Because I know he's on that. Thank you for the health insurance before HBO kicked in. But I'm serious though. Like that dental was real. But no, yes, that was huge last season, and a lot of people felt it, like not only on the corporate level, but also like, you know, what came out with, was it Jessica Chastain and Octavia Spencer? It's like, yo, she got a whole Oscar and is still making less than like Octavia and then Jessica, and Jessica Chastain had to like power up, which you're like, we still need the power up movement from the redhead? Okay, cool. And I think that's like more like coming out a lot more now. And that episode was highlighting that. And I think this season for Molly, she is gonna stand up for what she wants. The thing though is like Molly don't know cause and effect. Molly's just, I want this, okay, but you know, this comes with this other thing, right? And she hasn't put two and two together. She's just like, yeah, this is what it means to be a boss. And it's like, nah, not really. And I think she's gonna find that out. And we'll just journey along with her as she makes her mistakes.
Yeah, I think that's what's fun about Molly specifically this season is, you know, it's like one of the things you try to do in a show, you try to build on the things that you one of the things you try to do, there we go. Now we clicked up. I was like, who is this motherfucker?
I was like, I can't fight.
I was like, nigga, get swole.
Throw some Capri Suns at him.
You know, what you try to do is like you try to build on one season from the next, right? So you try to say, okay, how does Molly go from here to there and here to there? And so one of the things in season 2, obviously, is there's a lot of like, you know, okay, I'm gonna try to play corporate ball, right? And then like, oh, I can't play on that field, right? And kind of have a negative perception about that. And then I was in this relationship that now I'm like, nah, fuck, I'm not taking no L's no more. And she brings a lot of that energy into season 3. And I think the fun journey about Molly this season is really about when you have to start not realizing, one, you have bring a lot of negativity from your past hurts or your past trials, but also what do you have to do to also free yourself of that and forgive yourself or forgive people and move on and grow into a new era. So that's, to me, the fun thing about Molly this season, like the hard thing to watch, but also I think as you go on that journey with her, be the nice thing to watch. It's sort of this character sort of learn to forgive and learn to move on and learn to kind of not be so negative off of what has happened to her before. So I think that's a nice...
Yeah, I would say this is like the bag lady season for her, cause she gonna miss that buzz. Because like I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a really good way to put it, because she is projecting, and it's almost like the syndrome of like when you've been beat down, like the world is beating her, like the man is beating her down, these niggas is beating her down, and so now she's like, ah, and it's just like, but I'm not fighting you. Right. You know, and I think that's what we're gonna see. That's a good way to put it. You smart.
You important.
You a genius.
Prentice, you talked a little bit about your experience writing for Girlfriends way back. How is it different, sort of writing for this era of women, this generation? What would you say? Are there any challenges, or is it the same?
Nah, these chicks is wildin'. Like, I'm in the room, I'd be like, yo, that's what y'all talk about? Like, for real, I'd be like, yo, I missed the bus. Like,
why are you so aggressive?
I'm just stunned. Like, I'm 44, and I'm like, you know, Issa's 10 years behind me, and I'll hear her friends and that that conversations, and I'm just like, this is like, it's crazy. Like, I hear the women in the room talking about like when they're on Tinder and there it is and like what they date and da-da-da and all the things they have to go through and all the, you gotta beat this dude on Bumble and then co-sign that he's a friend of this dude and then
So you think social media is...
It's just like a different day. I mean, it's just like coming in like, I'm just like, it's amazing we populate. I don't understand how like... No, just like it's so many, like there's so many like, I guess social media policy or like norms that like you have to like that are just assumed now. That I'm just like, man, that's just like walking up to a girl like, you want to dance? It's just like that's just like nodding. It's like, nope, I gotta scope you on but like I saw you on Tinder, but then I had to like see it that you actually exist on Facebook and like that's the real you. Then I gotta like find out, do we have mutual friends in common that I can like get a cosign before we even go out to find out if you like are crazy or not. Like that's pre the date. That's just all just recon. It's a lot of recon, I guess. Is that right? It's a lot of recon.
But you know why we gotta do all that though, Princess? Cause these niggas is crazy. Nobody wakes up one day and was like, let me jump hurdles just to go on a date. It's like somebody made me this way.
Cause and effect. Cause and effect.
I got it. Don't put it all on the women.
I'm catching up.
Okay, because not you, but your cousins. This is crazy.
I would say that's the biggest difference.
Okay, enjoy it. Yvonne, you've had a pretty eventful year personally since the last time we saw you here.
Quotes. I'm booed up. Booed up.
No, God is good.
I know.
Did you recon the nigga? Did you recon him?
No, I did not. I'm very sane. Although I do have to like worry that I don't make Molly mistakes. I'd be like, what would Molly do? Don't do that.
Tell us what you've been up to, relationship-wise and other.
Living.
Like it's golden.
I just actually got off the plane from Rome yesterday, so God bless it. I did 5 sold-out shows in London. So I do stand-up, for those of you who don't know. So I went like Dublin, Ireland, London, and then we went to Rome for like 5-day vacation or whatever. But writing still, I have first gen still my baby that I'm trying to get out into the world. Reading, conjugating verbs.
I'm trying to hear about your man. Niggas like care about your script.
She didn't ask you a specific question. She asked me how life was. I was like, it's amazing.
I think, I think we'll leave it at that. We are gonna wrap it up soon. So, tell us, I know you guys just gave us a teaser, but what can we look forward to? Can you each talk about your favorite moment or episode that we can keep an eye out for?
I don't know. Yeah, just stay tuned. Episode 5, 6.
Okay.
It gets
Finish the
all
season.
of them.
Finish the
But I think what's
season.
exciting is like you're gonna see the show. I think in different ways than like we tried to push ourselves to do stuff where like some episodes you may not see certain characters. Some episodes may just be like you just take your. It's just about a journey. Like there are different things this season that we really wanted to like push ourselves and get out of things that felt very safe and very comfortable. And so I hope that everybody here, whether you love Lawrence, don't love Lawrence, love any character, hate any character, that you just, you know, what I've been saying is like, you know, when the whole Lawrence thing happened, there was this sort of thing that people were like, oh, the show's gonna be trash, or fuck him, we didn't like him no way. Like, and all things in between. And I wanna say that nobody is a bigger fan of the show than the people that create this show. We love it. So we would never do anything to wanna hurt it or lose your trust in that. And so one of the things we're trying to do constantly is push ourselves and say, if you loved us for the first 2 seasons, trust us that the choices we make are always about for the betterment of the show, for the betterment of the culture, and that just trust us on the journey as we go on this. So if you see something that you may not like in episode 2, just wait till the end of the season to reserve judgment. But we love that everybody loves the show, and seriously, shout out to everybody at HBO marketing, like multicultural marketing, promotions,
Lucinda.
for holding us up, like Lucinda, her whole team, everybody here at Martell's Vineyard Film Festival for supporting the show day one. Jeff Friday, everybody, thank you guys. Absolutely.
But I also think like that's a phenomenal point you make, because like this is a room full of creatives and y'all all creating your own content. So like to have the ability and the freedom to say, in the midst of this thing that I could kind of be locked in and be rigid in for years on end, I have a network who's gonna trust me and my creative vision to take a risk and not cancel us. It's like, one, shout out to HBO for allowing that, but you all would be so lucky to have a vision that comes to pass that you can say, midway through, let me try something new and see if it works. Because that's actual creative freedom. Nobody wants to go to work every day.
Because white people get to try that shit all the fucking time.
All the time.
It feels like we gotta, like, they try to make us stay in a lane that's like, we don't have to stay in their lanes. And the beauty of seeing stuff like Atlanta and Queen Sugar and Insecure and Blackish and all the movies that get made is like, we're finally getting to make our thing, our Manchester by the Seas, our La La Lands, our Good Will Huntings, and pushing ourselves to be in the same stratosphere. The fact that Issa's nominated, Tracy Ellis Ross is nominated, it's just like, yo, we kicked in the door, we ain't apologizing for shit, we here. But that's the beauty of us making art that challenges that.
Yeah.
So
That's good, yeah. Because it's like Breaking Bad wasn't Breaking Bad till it was Breaking Bad. Now everyone's like, well, we want to do a Breaking Bad meets SVU. But so like you can watch Insecure and be like, oh, I love what they did with that season 3. We want to do an Insecure meets Martha's Vineyard. I don't know, whatever your vision is.
That might be good, actually. Well, thank you so much. Insecure season 3 premieres tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, on
10:30.
HBO.
And we are live tweeting, so get on your Twitter spheres.
Oh, thank you.
thank you guys.
Thank you guys.